Hello and welcome to Quilt Addicts Anonymous. I'm Stephanie Soebbing. Today we have a quilting play-by-play where I show you how I quilted our latest Stashin with Stephanie quilt, Afternoon Picnic. It's just a series of wavy lines. We're going to be doing some waves that follow the sort of back and forth chevron of the background, and then also some waves that follow the shape of our square block that's turned on point. So it's really super simple. It's something an absolute beginner can do. And if it's something that you want to learn more about, you can check out our free Motion Quilting series. It starts back up again on Monday, and the whole week we're going to be talking about wavy lines and how to do them. And so make sure you check that out if this is something that you're interested in doing. Real quick about Stashin with Stephanie before we get started. It's our subscription club. We send you 10 fat quarters for $29.99 a month plus shipping. Plus members get exclusive discount on additional fabric. So if they want to take the bundle that they received and purchase additional fabric to turn that bundle into a quilt kit, we have that available for people. Or they can just get, if they have another project in mind, they can get whatever they need to go with it. They get the pattern for free along with access to all of our other Stashin with Stephanie patterns for free. It's over a $200 value right now. You get exclusive discounts on my 2 fat quarter books, Fat Quarter Patchwork Quilts and Fat Quarter Workshop, and first dibs on getting additional fabric. So they get a 24-hour head start on getting additional fabric. So that way we have been getting a lot extra, but we do sell out. And so we want to make sure that everybody gets first dibs. There were a few fabrics that were sold out completely. If people wanted to get additional yardage for, borders or backing fabric, things like that. So it's definitely something that you want to take advantage of to make sure you can get all the goodies that you want. All right, let's get going here. What I do is I mount a GoPro to the handlebar of my long arm so you get the same view I do. And then I'm just gonna watch the footage back and kind of explain what I'm doing and why. So the first thing you're gonna notice about this is the quilt is going up and down. These rows kind of go top to bottom. But you're gonna see that I've got it loaded sideways when I'm on the quilt. That's so that I can go all the way across from top to bottom when I'm on the long arm. If you're on a domestic, no big deal, you just are gonna go top to bottom like normal. But if you're on a long arm, load it sideways, then you don't have any stops and starts. You can just go from the top of the quilt to the bottom in one swoop. So the first thing I'm doing is I am going straight down the center of that chevron background. And that is kind of giving me my middle point so that I can evenly distribute the density of my quilting going forward. So I'm just kind of arbitrarily trying to stick in between the center of where these blocks are and turn whenever I hit a seam. And it's not perfect as I go through it. It is just something that I'm just kind of trying to aim for the middle. So then I'm going to work all the way back. My machine does not like to go from right to left. It only likes to go from left to right. So now I'm going about halfway in between where that center line is and where the seam of my block is. That way I can get essentially about a quarter of the way through all the way across. And again, we're going side to side here. Well, technically top to bottom, but I've loaded the quilt sideways. And I'm still just going very arbitrary, just trying to make that line wave a little bit. The more you try to make it exactly the same, the more frustrated you're going to be because you're never going to be able to do it. But if you just change directions, nice soft curves when you make that change of direction, whenever you hit that seam allowance, then you're going to have really nice undulations and texture that you're going to create with your quilt. You can see it goes really, really fast. All right, so now we're going to fill in at that other quarter. So now we are in between the middle line and sort of this bottom part. And we're just going to go back and forth, do the same thing we've been doing with everything else, except this time, we're filling in the bottom quarter of that. And what this does is it creates a really nice texture. You could always go more dense than this. But I would do at least these 3 to help secure your fabric really well, and also to work with the density requirements of your batting. Some battings require you to quilt up to 3 inches apart. So if I just quilted here and here, it might be too much of a space between here and here to have no quilting. All right, so one thing I did here is I've got my top row to quilt, and obviously I don't have that undulation. So what I'm doing is I am sort of going to the middle, and then I'm coming in where it would have come in for the actual block. I usually like to quilt my first like complete row first and then fill in the background at the edges of my quilt, because then I have a better understanding of how I'm going to be moving around the quilt, and it isn't as arbitrary, and I understand a lot more about what it is that I'm doing and how I need to move when I'm trying to mimic this wavy look, but all just on the edge of the quilt where I don't have those extra blocks. Like it sort of cuts off here. So I've got to kind of come down here and then travel over and then just hit all those middles to start with. And then later we're going to come back and we're going to fill in all those other places. So here I am, I'm still doing the quarters. In this case, I'm doing the bottom quarter. And it's the exact same process, except instead of having all this area to work in, I'm going to come over and then travel in that seam allowance, or that edge of the quilt that's going to be covered by your binding, and then I can move over to the next one. And you can see I'm going a tad bit slower here. That's because I'm being very intentional and thinking about where I'm going next, because it's not as easy of an undulation as just going straight across the entire length of the quilt. All right, so now we've got our final little pass. This one, let's pretend, remember this isn't here. So we're gonna do our top quarter and then travel along and then do the little top quarter. So you're just making little U's, always still changing direction, and a nice smooth curve whenever you hit that seam. So that way it just looks like it's the same texture as our big rows that are all connected, but it looks the same when you hit the edge of that quilt. So I don't always change threads, but I did for this one. I had this really fun, bright sort of tangerine neon orange that worked really well with my orange fabrics and my rust fabrics, and it actually coordinated very well. Obviously there isn't really much orange in the teal, but the colors are kind of across from each other on the color wheel, so they worked really well. So for this first one, what I'm doing is you're seeing me kind of hug the side of my block. I'm kind of going up and around, traveling through the point, and then hugging the top side again. So this is again just me trying to set the density that I'm going to do. And when you're setting your density, we actually have an entire lesson on this when we do our free motion quilting series, when we pick that up later this week. But it is very important to keep it the same density throughout your quilt. So at this point, whatever I decide on this first row, I have to stick with for the rest of the quilt. So I want to make sure I'm not doing it too loose to where I'm going to regret it later, and not too dense to where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is taking forever. All right, so I've got that top one done. So now I'm hugging the bottom, and you're seeing me just kind of wiggle down and wiggle up, always transferring right where these points are. We worked really hard to get them absolutely perfect in our piecing video. We want to make sure we show that off and travel through there with all of our stitches. And because I pressed all my seams open, it's really easy to do that because that seam is not bulky at all. It's really easy to just go straight through it. I do slow down pretty significantly to make sure that I am going straight through there. You'll see I go a lot faster when I'm just wiggling down at the bottom. And now this one, this is again about setting that density and making sure that it's nice and even. So now that I've got my two outsides completed, I need to now do one straight down the center so that I have a frame of reference for when I'm gonna fill in at these quarters. So this one is just nice and simple. You're just gonna do kind of a wiggle straight line, making sure that you're slowing down and going through those points. Now I do have a stitch regulator on my long arm, so I can speed up and slow down and not worry about my stitch length being different. So that is a really handy feature to look for, is make sure whatever model you're choosing, if you're going with a long arm, has that accurate that stitch regulator. If you're doing this on your home sewing machine, you're going to need to try to keep it steady so that way your stitch length is steady, and that's a combination of how fast you're moving the fabric to how fast your machine is going. All right, so now we are to that quarter. It's very similar to when we were quartering off for the background, except this time we're kind of coming up a little bit to hit the quarter of our block and then coming back down to the point. And that sort of creates that undulation that kind of comes out and helps define the block. And especially since we're using that coordinating thread, it really kind of helps it pop. Usually whenever I'm picking thread choices, a lot of times I just stick with white for everything or cream. But in this case, that orange kind of helped set it apart. It was like it was part of the thread. It looks very nice with it. And it's always fun to break out of my normal of white for everything and make this work. All right, so we are on that final pass here where I am now coming through and doing the quarter on the bottom. And to me, that was it. That was where I was gonna stop because the density of this block here is very similar to the density of the wavy line that's going in the background. And one of the things, if you ever get your quilt judged in a show, that's one of the things they're going to look for is that the quilt density is the same throughout the quilt. So I was able to use a really similar movement. It's all wavy lines. Just in one, we're kind of snaking our way back and forth, and in the other, we're going up and around to mimic both the shape of the background and the shape of the block. I really love doing this because I like using the quilting to enhance both the fabric and choices and the design. So in this case, yeah, I could have done an all over something or other, but what this does is by using the white thread and following the lines of that background and the movement of that, it helped bring that to life. And then the same thing by choosing a thread color that coordinated with my fabric here, and then follow the length of it. So that way that you're just gonna see the texture of it, and it's going to enhance all of your fabric choices. It's gonna enhance the design itself. It's not going to detract from any of those things. And it's gonna really look kind of fun. Let's take a peek from the back so you can see it a little better. All right, so here you can see it really well. So we can see over here, we have this undulating, that's our background. And then we have our sort of in and out curves here, and it really is pretty, but you can see overall the density of the quilting is very similar when you look at it from the back in terms of how far apart our quilting lines are spaced. Everything looks really pretty good, and I think this turned out really well. I'm very pleased with it. So that just goes to show you, you can have a custom quilted look without doing really fancy, complicated stitches. Everything about this quilting is custom. It highlights our fabric, it highlights the design of the pattern, but it was fast. It was really simple. I got it done in a couple of hours going back and forth, and it really went very fast. It was very simple to do. It's very simple to master. So again, if you want to learn more about wavy lines, we are studying them all week this week in our free motion quilting series. If you're watching this video many months or even years after we originally released it, just head on over to our website, quiltaddictsanonymous.com, and there under the tutorial section, there is a couple of courses that we put together that are longer length. This one has 28 video tutorials, and well, there will be once we finish publishing everything. It's all free to watch, but you can purchase a pattern, a kit, and a stencil kit to go with it if you choose. And it talks you through 4 different quilting stitches that are really pretty basic, but shows you how you can customize them in a number of different ways to make every quilt look unique and fantastic. I use wavy lines all the time, and I guarantee you none of my other quilts have looked quite like this one because I use it in different applications every time. It makes every quilt look fantastic because you're customizing it to the needs of that quilt and how it's speaking to you and wants to be quilted. All right, well, I hope you had some fun with this. We do still, at the time that I'm filming this, have fabric. We have been able to get more fabric for our Stashin with Stephanie Club, so we're not selling out as fast, but we do sell out. So do make sure that you head over to our website, shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. The Quilt Addicts Anonymous one is like the learning resource, and the shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com, that's where you can buy all the goodies to make the things. So we have quilt kits of this. The pattern is available. Her purchase is there as well. You can join Stashin with Stephanie. If you're thinking about joining Stashin with Stephanie, do that first on your first transaction. And then when you go to make your second transaction, you'll get this quilt at an exclusive discount. You'll get your pattern for free, plus a bunch of others. that are included for free for Stashin with Stephanie members. You get the exclusive discount on my 2 fat quarter books. And it's just a lot of goodies. Your first bundle, if you sign up today, the 28th, your first bundle will ship around the 20th of March, provided we get fabric in a reasonable time frame. That has been challenging the last couple of months, and you know, we're just doing the best we can with global manufacturing and shipping delays. And we've always gotten a bundle out every single month. It just is not always by the 20th, and we're doing our best with the resources and the timelines that we have to deal with, and we have to abide by when we actually receive the fabric. But we do our best with that. If you sign up March 1st or later, anytime in the month of March, your first bundle will not ship until around the 20th of April. I know that's a long time to wait. It can be up to 7 weeks before you get your first shipment notification. We do that for a couple reasons, but the biggest one is that when we ship these bundles out and we come out with the pattern to go with it, it is a mad dash to get additional fabric for all of our members. They want to get it, and we want to make sure that everybody has the same opportunity to get additional fabric so that it's fair for everybody who is in the club, and they can get an additional fabric to take their 10-piece fat quarter bundle and turn it into a full kit if they really like that month's pattern. You never have to get additional fabric. That's totally optional, but we want it to be fair for everybody who is a member to have that same opportunity to get additional fabric. And really that's the reason why we give you those patterns right away, so that way you can get that immediate $200 value, $200+ value of the free patterns as soon as you join. So you can keep busy, you can get your fabric discount right away. So if you want to get a kit that we still have from a previous Stash with Stephanie or some other fabric that we featured, you can get that right away. But you've got to wait for that bundle. So again, if you order today, the 28th, your bundle will ship around the 20th of March. And if you order March 1st through the end of the month, then you've got to wait until April. And that it is what it is. We try very hard to inform you guys of that, but every month I get angry emails of people who didn't pay attention to the video, who didn't read our product description, who didn't read the welcome emails that we send, welcoming you to the club and telling you about that. So sorry if it sounds like I'm beating a dead horse in every single one of these videos, but it's because every month I get angry emails from people who are frustrated because they didn't read to understand the shipping schedule, and then their expectations weren't set, so then they're upset. So just read your email from us. I know we send a lot of emails, but if it's specifically about this club, read your email because there's important stuff in it. So, okay, that's it. Can you tell I've been answering a few emails today? But anyway, all right, so it's Sunday. This was crazy town getting this ready. We had less than 2 weeks to go from receiving 1,600 pounds of fabric on 2 pallets to cutting 8,000 fat quarters to folding everyone by hand, bundling them, shipping them out to you guys. And in the meantime, I had to design, piece, quilt, and film a couple of video tutorials and write the pattern for this. So it's Sunday afternoon. I normally don't like to work on Sundays, so I'm going to leave you guys with this. And I hope you have enjoyed this month's quilting play-by-play. If you like it, check out that free Motion Quilting series. If you like the fabric, if you like the idea of getting discounts on fabric, join the club. Check it out. A lot of people are on it. We've got almost 800 members. It's people like it. It's fun. And we do our best to communicate with you guys when there are shipping delays, because fortunately it's inevitable in today's world. But just, you know, people are happy. You get free patterns every month. It's a good deal. So, all right, I'm rambling now, so I'm gonna let you go. And until next time, happy quilting.